case, they were keeping the victims alive, but they were found with puncture marks. So I think when the cattle or horse or cats or dogs or even occasionally humans, if they're going to terminate the creature, they go ahead and make it a bloodless extraction. They just extract all the blood. So when the cow goes up in the air, 20, 30 feet or whatever, all the blood's gone and it's just dropped because they found cows that were hanging over fences that have had broken bones and stuff. So if you connect all the dots with that whole phenomena, it's being done with laser-like precision instruments that can, or biological appendages that can cut in between the cells. We didn't have anything of that stature back in 1961 where this started out. The mutilations started, they've been going on for a couple hundred years that we know of, but real heavily since 1965 to the late 70s, where it was actually epidemic, and the FBI was asked to get involved, and they wouldn't get involved, and the ranchers were all upset. And they would have carloads of ranchers with shotguns, waiting to see, and all they would see was sort of a flash of an amorphous light. And then the next day, they would go there and the cows were dead. They had no blood. Their sex organs were excised, their tongue, their jaw, and just a classic mutilation. There are some human examples. There's one from the Paranga Dam in Brazil, I believe. And I read the autopsy report on that. And even in Linda Moulton's House Alien Harvest video that she's got on YouTube, my wife and I were watching this for about 2 hours and trying to put this puzzle together about how this is actually happening. And then it went into the human mutilation. We went, oh, no. And the first thing I thought of was AI. I don't think human beings would have the capability of doing that to another human being because judging by its vital reactions and bruises, the human was alive at the time this was done, and some sort of cutting instrument was inserted into his rectum and some of his insides pulled out. There's little cookie cutter circular marks on his shoulders, and you can read about this online. And it's a really interesting case, but the fact that every once in a while a human gets into the mix, it's somebody that doesn't care about human life at all and has no feelings for animal or human life. They just need what they need, either for their own survival if they're a creature of some sort, or possibly they're a biological technology that an even more advanced alien intelligence is using to extract the tissue samples that they need for whatever project they're doing. And then that gets into Dr. David Jacobs' idea that since the abductions and the cattle mutilations were coexistent for about 15 years, real strong, Dr. David Jacobs thinks that there is an alien-human hybrid program going on, that we're either being genetically enhanced somehow, or that another race is mixing their genes in with ours, or some type of hybrid program. And he has Dr. Jacobs kind of has a dismal view on it. I read his recent book, Walking Among Us. He thinks that the hybrids are already here now and that their goal is to colonize or take over the world. And then there's other people like Dr. John Mack and many others who think of these new hybrids in a much more positive light, that they actually are able to see into the spectrum a lot farther. They have certain telepathic community capabilities, and that it's a positive thing for the human race, that maybe we were too violent and they had to tone that down. I think this planet Earth has had millions of years of terraforming involved in it, and there's a lot of loving care that went into making this the jewel or the oasis out in space that it actually is. It certainly didn't happen by accident. There's higher intelligence involved, and I don't think that they want the humans to blow the whole thing up. It's probably a petri dish that has all kinds of life on it that is good for manipulating in certain ways to take off world, to terraform other planets, and it's a really good source. We have such a diversity of life here on planet Earth that it's just a really good laboratory to take specimens to other worlds and maybe possibly alter them a little bit. Maybe the atmosphere is a little different, or the gravity is a little different, or whatever. But there's a lot going on in the interdimensional realm and the extraterrestrial realm, and I think disclosure is happening every day, every single day. Individuals and small groups are they're exposing themselves to them and letting them know that we're not alone. But as far as any open contact disclosure event, I'm not sure the human race is ready for that. John Keel was asked if we would ever have open disclosure, and he said we're just not ready for it. So there's some people that are pushing for open disclosure right now, and then other people are worried about what it would do to our religions and our economic structures and so forth, or if people would just go berserk and there would be chaos. So
right. So that's sort of why I brought us together as a team of humans that I want to find out what our similarities are, because Linda, as her being an investigative reporter, that's what I call myself, investigator, but I've had out-of-body, near-death experience, extraterrestrial, CE5, if you listen to Dr. Stephen Greer, or J. Allen Hynek, meaning I have had first-hand experience one-on-one that not everybody will want to know about or believe. And I'm tying in my life just from my own experiences back to the Allied Command on the planet and the Allied Command, the Supreme Allied Command off planet. So, having experience, whether it's real or not, to others, and having you come on with Ken as my co-host, I'd like to talk a little bit about how we perceive ourselves with extraterrestrials, EBENS, NDE, and sort of like, I guess it's Stephen Greer. Let me just put it this way. Linda went more on where she opened up a door, or she went through Alice's in the looking glass, she says, back when she first had talked to a detective or sheriff, I'm forgetting which one, but told her that he could just save her a lot of time because one of the cows had dug a hole he speculated because of the pain, he thought they just let him back down, and he did his head back and forth, but she said at that time is when she went to, he just said it's people off planet or aliens off planet, but she changed with that 2.5-hour drive back to Littleton, Colorado, thinking about what he said and seeing all the pictures. So I'm sure you saw that in her book, Alien Harvest and
yes.
whatever, but you can hear about that. But it changes us. And my near-death experience and out-of-body, when I had hepatitis, that's sort of common, I guess, if I had blood drawn out of my body in the second grade, and then that's in my books. And then when I started with UFO Digest, when I came out in 2007, but then again when I had placenta previa with my fourth daughter, she just died and passed. So I'm still in this really deep bereavement over death and dying and why we're here. And I'm wondering, all these years I put all this money into this 40 times 12 times 7 years, coming up June 6 is how much just the radio show minimum, and then Spreaker's like another 40 and 20. I'm spending 60 there, and then I have all these websites I've tried to keep up as blogs and topics, and yet you use social media, Facebook, Twitter, Pinterest, and like everybody else, and now we're doing, everyone's got YouTubes, and I've got 70 or 80 out there, I think, not to mention the channels on all of them. And I'm like, okay, why am I doing all this? So my mission, as far as I knew, coming back, was like an agreement, like a bodhisattva or avatar, whatever you want to call it, but I'm very interested in how you put this together with me and Ken and anybody else that wants to join my ACO Invisible College that feels like we're putting together something that people really can't see, nor can we really prove. It's all based on, do you have a soul or do you not? Now, the EBENS, allegedly, now I can't prove this, I'm going on what Linda Moulton Howe shared with others, is at the particular time that she got the letter from Rick Doty, where I'm picking up one of my trains of thought, is where my husband and I came in, 1980 to 93. And my husband had 125 or 35 confirmed kills, but he had many more than that, and he was under orders from the United States Army, but that was his front job, but he was actually undercover CIA, and they finally put him in S2 division over in Europe. But he worked right around Paris, France, and the Allied Command. But you said you're not familiar with Bob Dean and the Allied Command and those that work with extraterrestrials and those that are on the planet. You're not familiar with that train of reality, are you?
Yeah,
are some of us that work with ET?
Yeah, there was Bob Dean was with the SHAPE program over at Allied Command in Europe, and he was exposed apparently to the same set of documents that William Cooper was exposed to as a former Naval Intelligence Briefing Officer. And in these documents, we pretty much know for a fact, whatever the reality behind the documents is, that high-ranking officers in our military are presented with these papers as if they are fact. Okay.
Yes.
And both Robert Dean and William Cooper said that they have pictures and photographs of various craft and various extraterrestrial entities, and some of them look just like you and I and could walk amongst us, and we wouldn't even know any different. And
that's my testimony.
Yeah.
That's my testimony, by the way. But that's meaning my experience in the government and out of the government.
He was a really interesting person and spent the majority of the remainder of his years, talking about ET reality and his experience with the SHAPE program and the documents that he was exposed to. But even William Cooper wondered the same thing that I'm talking about, is like he wondered if the documents were real. If they actually...
You do realize that they're talking about Washington, London, and I have firsthand experience. So Washington and London, we were working with the Allied Command out of Germany, right? And that was working under Warsaw and the NATO. And my husband, having worked in it and educated me, and then me and he in underground and with extraterrestrials. So for years, we've been talking about this on this TJ Morris ET Radio. But yet, it doesn't get disseminated. And it's amazing to me because Bob O'Dean did the same thing back for 12 to 15 years before he gave us the first money to go forward with Janet and the Stargate to the Cosmos and Tommy, and they joined me here 7 years ago. So I don't know if you're familiar with our history or how we became the Allied Command, or on planet or off. So this is fun having you here because you are such a researcher. And I think you left off your book with Dr. Stephen Greer. There's Stanton Friedman, 1934 the dash, and we're talking about my dash now, and Dr. Stephen Greer, 1955 dash. Now, I know Stanton. I was on the phone when we chose Dr. Stephen Greer, some of us, in a program that I imagine most people don't even know exists. So I'm at the 1951 dash in there, and then Ken being chosen for the space program, astronaut, and then you. So the one thing I'm trying to find out is we all have something in common in the dash between it. But you've got Stanton Friedman, Stephen Greer, and then I'm expecting the next book to have you, me, and Ken in it. between there and the apologue. So that's why I've invited you here, and I'm really excited to have you here. But we've got to fill in that. So you don't really understand all of the knowledge that Bob Dean shared with the score. Well, with what he did. Did you ever hear him speak about how he came upon the program, or on the his boss decided he wasn't going to get the information on the ETs, so they did their own investigation. Are you familiar with that?
Well, I remember him saying in one of his YouTube videos that he got a hold of a book when he was on the job, like he was doing a night shift or something, and he found this book and became really interested in it, and had all this information about what the governments knew about extraterrestrial civilizations and photographs and stuff. And I've seen him speak, just online. I haven't seen him speak in person.
Well, how would you did you put him in your book? I don't remember if you covered Bob Dean, but I'm sure you couldn't carry. Yeah, let me see if
it's something about him. Yeah.
Okay,
there's a section on Robert Dean and the SHAPE
program
good.
In
Europe, yeah.
Okay, awesome. Well, I'd like, with me, you, and Ken, to pick up if you would play with us. Now, I've asked Ken to help me with the Allied Command on Earth, and where we use civilian and military, and the three of us would be considered veterans. Whether you like it or not, you're still a veteran because you've got 2 years in uniform. You went through boot camp, and maybe we're all three programmed, maybe we're not on this planet. Now, here's the conundrum. Could we be our souls? I say we have souls, and we're doing our own soul's journey. Now, people that are interviewing, like Linda Moulton Howe or whatever, like why, and are the papers really real? And because we have a paper trail, and she's like, well, give me a DD-214 and give me where you were, which we know can be manufactured. and the government will or will not back you up, or you can or can